The movie opens with our protagonist, Mili, a 24-year-old nursing graduate. She lives with her father, Naranjan, and spends her free time practicing English because she dreams of moving to Canada and starting a better life. Naranjan isn't happy about her decision to leave, but Mili refuses to change her mind, as the salary in her country is barely enough to survive. One morning, while Naranjan is driving her, Mili gets a missed call. When her dad asks who it is, she casually says it's from her friend Samira. Naranjan doesn't question it and drops her off at her IELTS class. After class, Mili heads to the mall. Outside, an auto driver catcalls her, but she ignores him and arrives at her workplace, a restaurant called Dune's Kitchen. She starts her shift, but her phone keeps buzzing with calls from Samira, which she deliberately ignores. Later, Mili receives a call on the restaurant phone. A man apologizes and begs for another chance, but she hangs up. She tells her colleague Hasleen that it was her boyfriend, Samir, whom she's furious with for skipping an important job interview. In the evening, Mili meets her father at a theater. When she receives another call from Samira, she realizes her boyfriend is sitting right next to her. He's the one calling under that name. He apologizes again, and although she panics because her father doesn't know about their relationship, Mili eventually forgives him. Over the next few days, she continues her routine, spending time with Samir, working at the mall, and practicing English. She eventually takes her IELTS exam and scores well, filling her with excitement. She begins her Canada application, but both her father and Samir seem unhappy about her plans. One day, Mili receives a call from Samir, who excitedly tells her he finally got a job, located in Delhi. Though he wants to stay until she leaves for Canada, she encourages him not to miss such a big opportunity. Later, Mili leaves work early, meets Samir, and the two visit a temple. She tells him she plans to speak to her father about their marriage now that he has a job, which makes him genuinely happy. That night, while riding home, they're stopped by police for not wearing helmets. Samir speaks to Officer Satish, explaining he was just dropping off his girlfriend. Satish smells alcohol on him, and after testing, confirms he has been drinking. He decides to arrest him and demands Mili's father's number. Samir panics and pleads not to involve him, but the officer refuses and takes them both to the station. Soon, Naranjan arrives and is devastated to see his daughter in such a situation. Satish reveals their relationship and harshly insults Samir. Eventually, he lets Naranjan take Mili home, but the tension between father and daughter is painfully clear. They drive home in silence, and even afterward, Naranjan refuses to speak to her. The next day, they visit a travel office to book Mili's flight to Canada, and Naranjan insists on getting the earliest date available. He drops Mili at her workplace afterward and leaves without saying a word. During her shift, Mili keeps ignoring Samir's calls. Soon, he shows up at the restaurant, saying he's leaving for Delhi that night and just wants 2 minutes to talk. Trying to stay professional, she asks him to place an order instead. Their manager, Sudhir, notices the commotion and angrily scolds Mili for bringing personal issues to work. Embarrassed, Samir orders something just to stop the scene, but leaves without eating. That night, it's closing time, but Mili stays behind, reluctant to go home since her father is still upset. Meanwhile, Sudhir is outside on a call when a supply truck arrives. He sees two employees, Ladu and Vipul, trying to leave early and yells at them to put the boxes in the freezer first. They rush inside and ask Mili to handle it for them, as they're in a hurry. She agrees. Ladu quickly punches out before leaving. While Mili is placing the boxes inside the walk-in freezer, Sudhir passes by, notices the door open, assumes the boys were careless, and shuts and locks it. He turns off the lights and checks the attendance sheet, which shows everyone, including Mili, has punched out. With that, he leaves, unaware she's still inside. Inside the freezer, Mili finishes packing the scattered food when the lights go out, plunging her into darkness. Horrified, she realizes what has happened. She turns the lights back on and screams for help, but no one hears her. Her phone is still outside on the table. Panicking, she tries breaking the door with heavy metal items, but nothing works. Meanwhile, Samir is about to leave for Delhi and keeps calling her, without success. Hasleen then receives a worried call from Naranjan, who says Mili hasn't come home. Alarmed, she contacts Vipul, who says Mili and the manager were still at the restaurant when he left. She calls Sudhir next, who claims Mili punched out before him and rudely says he doesn't keep track of employees after hours. Hasleen informs Naranjan that Mili already left work, leaving him confused and more anxious. He keeps calling Mili, unaware her phone is ringing silently nearby. Inside the freezer, the temperature has dropped to minus 12.5 degrees Celsius. Mili desperately rubs her hands together for warmth. She finds a movie ticket in her pocket and realizes the last show of the night should be ending soon. Meanwhile, Samir boards the bus to Delhi with a heavy heart. At the mall, the movie ends and people begin leaving. Mili uses the moment to bang on the door with a tray, screaming for help. A child hears something and alerts his father, But right then, exhausted, Mili stops banging, and the man hears nothing. The mall shuts down again. Inside, the temperature drops to minus 13 degrees Celsius. Mili's face reddens, and blood starts dripping from her nose. Soon, it drops even further to minus 16.1 degrees Celsius, but she refuses to give up. She uses clothes and duct tape to wrap her hands and feet. Spotting the fans above, she stacks cardboard boxes and tapes them to block the airflow. Suddenly, a shelf collapses, trapping her leg and causing intense pain. Meanwhile, Naranjan and his friend Mohan go to the police station. Satish dismissively claims Mili must have run away with her boyfriend and tells them to contact Samir. He gives them Samir's address and orders them to leave. Back inside the freezer, Mili removes the cloth from her injured leg and is horrified to see it badly discolored and dislocated. Naranjan and Mohan visit Samir's house, where his mother tells them he left for Delhi that night. Panicked, Naranjan keeps calling Mili with no response. Frozen and in agony, Mili wedges her foot between two shelves and manages to pop her dislocated leg back into place. Meanwhile at home, Hasleen and her husband arrive to speak with Naranjan just as Samir shows up as well. An enraged Naranjan demands to know where his daughter is, but Samir insists he knows nothing. His mother had only just informed him about Mili. Mohan, however, doesn't believe him and drags him to the police station. Back in the freezer, Mili wakes up and is horrified to find a mouse touching her hand. She pulls away in fear, then slowly begins petting it, finding a small sense of warmth and comfort in its presence. Elsewhere, Officer Satish, who's napping in his vehicle, receives a call from his subordinate, informing him that Mili's family has arrived with Samir, but the girl is still missing. Inside the freezer, Mili wraps her legs with tape and uses pieces of cardboard to brace her injured foot. She notices the mouse scavenging a box of food and eats whatever she can. Then, grabbing a metal rod, she tries prying open the fan's outer guard while Naranjan and the others continue searching the town for her. Soon after, she notices smoke filling the room. Struggling to breathe, she quickly extinguishes the small fire and comes up with a new idea. Mili gathers cardboard boxes to create a small makeshift tent, crawls inside with the mouse, and uses her lighter to generate a bit of warmth. Meanwhile, Naranjan and the others return to the police station just as Satish finally arrives. Samir pleads with him to track Mili's phone, but the officer refuses to take the case seriously. He even pulls Samir aside and accuses him of harming the girl. When Satish becomes aggressive, Naranjan steps in and argues with him. The commotion draws the attention of a senior officer named Ravi. Naranjan explains how Satish has been negligent despite their repeated pleas. Furious, Ravi scolds Satish and stresses that the girl could be in serious danger. He orders him to contact the cyber unit immediately and report back with updates. Naranjan explains the entire situation to Ravi, who then calls the restaurant manager. Sudhir once again insists that Mili had already left when he did and provides the attendance sheets for review. Suddenly, Samir mentions an auto driver who used to harass Mili, so the group heads to the mall to find him. Back in the freezer, Mili looks around for the mouse and finds that it has died, leaving her heartbroken. Elsewhere in the car, Samir recalls seeing the attendance sheet earlier and realizes something strange. Ladu had said Mili was still in the restaurant when he left, yet the sheet shows she punched out before him. Shocked, Samir jumps out of the car, borrows a friend's bike, and rushes to find Ladu. He asks his friend to continue with Naranjan and the officers to track the auto driver. Inside the freezer, Mili is growing weaker. She throws whatever food she can at the fans to stop them, but nothing works. Back at the police station, Satish receives a call from the cyber unit. They've tracked Mili's last known location. He asks them to send it via WhatsApp. When the message arrives, he simply ignores it and starts watching YouTube, leaving his subordinate increasingly worried. In the freezer, Mili has wrapped herself entirely in plastic and continues hurling frozen meat at the fans. Meanwhile, Officer Ravi questions the auto driver, but the man firmly denies knowing anything, and other drivers confirm his innocence. At last, Mili successfully jams one of the fans using chunks of food, giving her a brief moment of relief. Samir finally finds Ladu, who explains the truth. Mili was about to leave when he and Vipul asked her to put the boxes in the freezer. Realizing what this means, Samir calls his friend to warn him about the freezer, but his phone dies mid-sentence. Without wasting a moment, he rushes toward the mall, but ends up involved in an accident due to his frantic haste. Meanwhile, officers review CCTV footage of the area but find no trace of Mili. Back in the freezer, Mili throws more meat at another fan, but she is now extremely weak and barely able to move. At the station, the subordinate begs Satish to send the tracked location to Officer Ravi. Satish refuses out of spite after being scolded. He even says the girl's life means nothing to him. An inmate overhears the conversation and intentionally attacks another prisoner, forcing Satish into the cell to break up the fight. Taking advantage of the chaos, the subordinate sneaks into Satish's phone, finds the tracked location, and immediately calls Officer Ravi with the urgent update. Meanwhile, Samir regains consciousness after the accident. The car owner wakes him up, asking if he needs help. Samir begs him to take him to the mall. At the same time, officers arrive at the mall and begin a frantic search. Mili is shown drifting in and out of consciousness. Ravi and his team rush to Dune's kitchen, but Sudhir is still on his way, and without him, they have no key to open the door. Inside the freezer, the temperature has now dropped to an extreme -18 degrees Celsius. Summoning all her remaining strength, Mili uses her hair clip to unscrew the bolts of a small vent. Behind it, she finds a network of pipes. Weak but determined, she begins banging on them, hoping someone will hear. Outside, Naranjan hears faint noises. Moments later, Mili collapses, dropping the tray she was using. It slides through the vent toward her father, just as Samir also arrives. Sudhir finally reaches the restaurant and unlocks the main door. They rush inside and open the freezer, finding Mili unconscious and on the brink of death. Samir quickly wraps her in a blanket, but she remains unresponsive. Both men break down in tears, until suddenly, Mili's lips move. They immediately rush her to the hospital. Later, the doctor informs Naranjan and the others that Mili suffered several complications, but thankfully, she was brought in just before severe hypothermia could set in. He is shocked she survived 5 hours in temperatures as low as -17 degrees Celsius, with only normal clothing. Meanwhile, Officer Ravi scolds Sudhir for failing to install a safety alarm in the freezer. At that moment, Ravi gets a call from Satish, who falsely claims that the cyber unit has just found the girl's last location. Ravi, realizing the deception, angrily warns him of severe consequences. In the final scene, Mili awakens. The first thing she asks is whether her father has taken his medication, and she worries over Samir's injury from the accident. They calm her down, and she is relieved to see her father and boyfriend finally bonding. Mili then announces that she has decided to abandon her plans to move to Canada and stay with her loved ones. Naranjan warns her to think carefully, reminding her that the salary here won't be as high, but Mili no longer cares. All that matters to her now is being with the people she loves. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.